All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. It's time for Top of the Morning here on the Urban Conservative. This morning, we're going to talk about former Lieutenant Governors, Mark Robinson's Chief of Staff, her shooting update. We're going to go over the Pete Hegseth confirmation, some of those highlights, and David Rouser's bill to potentially end the Department of Education. Top of the Morning starts right now on the Urban Conservative. This season of The Urban Conservative is brought to you by Homium, helping to build generational wealth for historically disadvantaged groups, low-income households, and first-time homebuyers. Homium is helping to bridge the affordability gap for home ownership in your community. Visit homium.io.
Welcome to the Urban Conservative Podcast, where we do not believe that avocado toast can save the planet or the world will end, because cars use gasoline. You won't hear that Wi-Fi is a basic human right, or that billionaires are secretly supervillains. Here, we do not believe that electric cars run on hopes and dreams. You also won't hear that anyone who disagrees with us is a fascist, or that socialism will make everyone rich. You won't be gender affirmed or offered any opportunity to share your preferred pronouns. If this causes you any discomfort, please rest assured that we couldn't possibly care less. For everyone else, thank you, and please stand by.
My fellow Americans, it's time for the Urban Conservative Podcast. This is without a doubt the best podcast on the internet. It's about to go down here on the Urban Conservative.
3, 2.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. It is time for Top of the Morning here on the Urban Conservative. Yours truly, Abdul Ali, one half of the TUC twins, rocking with you. If you haven't done so already, tuconservative.com is the website. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead, smash that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live and when we drop special news reports. Got to give a big, massive shout out to everybody that supports what we do here. Our mission, if you're not familiar, is to share conservative values and principles, as well as the benefits of conservative policies to urban communities across the United States. We do that via this podcast, Top of the Morning, through the Urban Conservative, through educational events and in partnership with groups like the Frederick Douglass Foundation and Freedom Alliance and a host of others. So we really appreciate each and every one of y'all that takes the time to rock out. Man, I got to tell you, hold on, I got to get this coffee. I got to tell you, it is a very interesting dynamic these days. You know, over the last election cycle, we've seen basically the dismantling of the mainstream media. We've seen over this last election cycle how the mainstream media tended to want to create narratives and cover things, you know, and basically create narratives and cover things from the perspective of trying to create a facade, if you will, of narrative shaping and to try to get what people call uninformed consent. Now, one of the interesting things that we noticed throughout this election cycle is that Black conservatives, particularly Black conservative candidates, Black conservative leaders, typically do not get positive press. That is something that we've noticed. I've at least noticed since the launch of Black Voices for Trump. I noticed that when you see Black Republicans getting elected to positions, that there tends to not be as much media spotlight on those people from a positive perspective. I happen to be in a room where former Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson here in North Carolina was in a room full of Black people, and the folks who organized the event didn't even recognize that the first Black Lieutenant Governor in North Carolina was in the room. So there is, I think, without a doubt, a bias on behalf of the media to not want to positively portray Black conservatives. It's gone even as far, shouts out to Valerie Johnson and the whole FDF, when Black Republican conservative women did do a highlight of why they were supporting Trump. They even misnamed the video. Right? They went and misnamed the video so that the perspective, because most people don't read articles, they read highlights, they read headlines. So it is without a doubt very interesting to us that you would have now the first Black female to serve as chief of staff for the office of the lieutenant governor in North Carolina, which in no small way is a little thing. All right. That's a humongous thing. We know the left is always celebrating the first Black person to eat, cream corn, the first Black person to invent this, the first Black person to serve as that. All of this celebration of the first Black whatever have you by the left, this woman achieves the rank of chief of staff for the lieutenant governor and had a very unfortunate incident. We're going to jump right in and talk a little bit about what's happening with Krishana Polite. And the reason we did this, and I'm just going to say this out at the outset, some people are like, oh, you're using this tragedy for your own purposes. And to be honest with you folks, it is a tragedy. And we do need to highlight what happened, because until we got involved at the Frederick Douglass Foundation, there was no media coverage. Before we talk about the media coverage that there is, I want to read to you the Frederick Douglass Foundation of North Carolina's press release that we put out on January the 13th. And it reads, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, July 1st, Krishana Polite, the first Black chief of staff for the office of the North Carolina lieutenant governor, was tragically injured in a shooting in Winston-Salem. Despite her prominent position and the broader implications of this shocking act of violence, the incident has received minimal attention from the Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and North Carolina media outlets. Ms. Polite's historic appointment marked a significant step forward in representation and leadership within state government. Her dedication to public service and advocacy for equity has made her a beloved and respected figure in North Carolina politics. Yet this act of violence against a trailblazing Black woman has been met with a deafening silence from local and regional media. In a quote, Krishana Polite has broken barriers and served as a beacon of hope for so many in our community, said Emmanuel Jarvis, president of the Frederick Douglass Freedom Alliance of North Carolina. The lack of media coverage surrounding this shooting not only dismisses the seriousness of the attack, but also perpetuates a disturbing trend of neglecting stories that center Black women and leaders of color who happen to be Republicans. End quote. I'm going to skip down to a broader pattern of media neglect. This incident highlights a systemic issue in which stories involving Black leaders, particularly Republicans, fails to receive the same level of attention as their counterparts, because you all best believe if this was Rachel Hunt, the current lieutenant governor's former chief of staff, if this was Roy Cooper's former chief of staff, if this was any Democrat former chief of staff, this would have been all over WRAL. This would have been all over the mainstream media. Now, to the credit of WUNC, they did put out a story that you see on your screen here. They did, to their credit. And I want to read this story to you. We're going to take a look at this story because this is the only one that we've seen thus far. And I want y'all to pay attention to why this is even a story. Top aide to former Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson recovering from a New Year's shooting in Winston-Salem. Krishana Polite was shot in the neck outside a church on Old Lexington Road and taken to a nearby hospital, according to a police report. Winston-Salem police say they're still investigating the incident and no arrests have been made. Polite was Robinson's chief of staff last year and was the first Black woman to serve in that role. A GoFundMe page for her recovery says she suffered nerve damage in the shooting. The fundraising page notes that she was leaving a New Year's Eve church service at St. Peter's Church and World Outreach Center when she was shot, and the bullet may have come from celebratory gunfire nearby. Police report says the shooting took place around 12:10 on January the 1st. The incident didn't garner much attention until the conservative advocacy group, the Frederick Douglass Foundation, issued a news release this week. The group called on police to provide more information about their investigation, and its leader, Emmanuel Jarvis, questioned why, quote, this act of violence against a trailblazing Black woman has been met with a deafening silence, end quote, in local media. Krishana is currently recovering. Ashley Stower, spokeswoman for the group, told WUNC on Tuesday, bullet is still lodged in her neck from what the doctors could tell, and saw shrapnel in her shoulder and left side, and she has regained some feeling in her left arm since being discharged. Polite was promoted to serve as Robinson's chief of staff last fall after some staff members quit in the wake of a CNN report. She had previously been his deputy chief of staff. Now, I want to make clear, we don't know if this was on purpose. We don't know if this because of celebratory shooting. But what this does tell me, by the fact that there is not as much coverage of this, is that they don't want to highlight how reckless and dangerous Democrat cities have become. To the point, and just making a point about this here, just making a point. You mean to tell me there was celebratory gunfire in the air? Okay, one bullet is the only one that lands and just so happens to hit Krishana? I'm not saying it was on purpose. We don't know. We really don't know. But the fact of the matter is, she was hit. This needs to be shared. The word needs to get out. And truth of the matter is Emmanuel is absolutely right. There is not as much coverage for Black conservatives in the media. And a part of that, I think, is because they don't want Jim and Jill and Joe Public to hear from Black conservatives. They don't want the average Black Hispanic Democrat hearing from Black conservatives. They want to perpetuate this what they call the Uncle Tom, and that Black Republicans are somehow traitors. And then the idea, I'll just be real with y'all, people, even within Republican circles, have to be mindful. This is a woman that worked for Black Voices for Trump. This is a woman that, when everybody else abandoned Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's office, she stepped up to serve as his chief of staff during those last few months. Not only was she his chief of staff, she also served throughout his term as his deputy chief of staff. And I did multiple events with Krishana where we brought the lieutenant governor to see young Black people, to see that in North Carolina, in the United States of America, that if you dream it, if you work hard for it, you can achieve it. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is indeed a GoFundMe set up. You can go to the Frederick Douglass Foundation page. We have a goal. We want to help her. Imagine this. You lose your job that night. You know, your job is over, and then you get shot in the neck. So we want to make sure we're wrapping our arms around Krishana and her family. A GoFundMe has been set up. We'll put a link to that on the Urban Conservative. You make sure, if you're able to support Krishana, please do. You know, we want, as conservatives, to wrap our arms around folks that serve the conservative cause, that serve the party, and that are going to work to make sure that not just as a Black woman, not just as a woman, not just as a Republican, a conservative, but a fellow Christian, that we're wrapping our arms around Krishana. And again, that GoFundMe is set up. All the money, 100% of it, is going to go to Krishana to help her get through this time that she's having. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The former Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson's former chief of staff, victim of gunfire. Like I said, we don't know if it is purpose, accident. There's not a lot being said, but we're going to update you guys as we get more information about what's going on with Krishana Polite. With that said, we're going to take a very, very quick commercial break. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to talk about the potential end of the Federal Department of Education. We'll be right back here on the Urban Conservative. Y'all don't go nowhere.
This season of The Urban Conservative is brought to you by Homium, helping to build generational wealth for historically disadvantaged groups, low-income households, and first-time homebuyers. Homium is helping to bridge the affordability gap for home ownership in your community. Visit homium.io.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are back on the Urban Conservative. Abdul Ali rocking with you here on top of the morning. Glad to be with you. As always, jump in the comments. Let us know where you are watching and or listening from so that we can get you a shout out. I see my homegirl Shamik is in the building. Shouts out to Cumberland County. Y'all got an event popping off this weekend. Looking forward to that. on the 24th, I'm sorry. But yeah, the guy you see on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman you see on your screen, folks, is Representative David Rouzer from the great state of North Carolina, my home state. David Rouzer, just to give you a little backdrop, is the representative for the 7th Congressional District. He was a Republican member of the General Assembly representing Johnston and Wayne County in the 12th District of the North Carolina Senate. He was one of these guys that I think rightfully worked his way up from the General Assembly to go to Congress. And I also got to give him a massive shout out because he's an NC State grad, member of Phi Delta Theta fraternity in 94, earned a BA in agricultural business management, agricultural economics and chemistry, graduate of the Fund for American Studies Institutes on Business and Government Affairs and American Economic and Political Systems. He's been a small business owner of the Rouzer Company and the Warehouse Distribution. From 2001 to 2002, was the assistant dean at NC State University College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. 05 and 06, he was an associate rural administrator for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, interestingly, the reason we're talking about Representative Rouzer here is because he has just put up, and we're going to check out his press release on this. He has just introduced a bill to dissolve the Department of Education. Now, we all know Trump and Elon Musk and their campaign trail about government efficiency. One of the interesting things about the Department of Education, and as you can see from this, it ballooned from $14 billion to $65.7 billion, and the average salaries for employees at the Department of Education is $108,000. Matter of fact, let's just do this. Congressman Rouzer, NC7, introduced H.R. 2281, the state's Educational Reclamation Act of 2015, which would return control of our students' education back to state and local leaders. The Department of Education's budget has ballooned from $14 billion to $65.7 billion, and the average salary for their employees is $108,571. Meanwhile, the teacher salary for public school teachers is only $56,000. Now, I think the interesting thing about him issuing this bill to get rid of the federal Department of Education is because the Department of Education is largely incompetent. And we have to ask ourselves a question, folks. Are we, as the American taxpayer, the return on the investment that we spend billions of dollars in the Department of Education, are we seeing a return on that investment as it relates to children coming out of our schools literate, producing the workforce, the modern workforce that we need going into the new economy of the future with technology and everything? And I dare say the answer is absolutely not. Okay. HR 369 is basically a bill that is going to, it says, to provide for the elimination of the Department of Education. It's straightforward, very simple, and for other purposes. So what we're going to do, as you can see, there is no text to the bill of yet. It was just introduced. So what we are going to do is, as soon as this bill has text and we're able to look at it and bring it back to you guys so that what's in there other than eliminating the Department of Education, which I'm sure it's going to get modified and all that stuff, we'll definitely bring it back to you for attention, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, keep an eye HR 369 to provide for the elimination of the Department of Education. We're going to be right back with our last thing for the morning. We're going to talk about some of the highlights from Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing, which was absolutely interesting. Some unhinged moments from the Democrats. Y'all don't go nowhere. We'll be right back here on Top of the Morning on the Urban Conservative. Y'all don't move.
This season of the Urban Conservative Podcast is brought to you by Newton for Senate, working to improve education, reduce taxes, and keep North Carolina #1 for business. Find out more at newtonforsenate.com. This episode of the Urban Conservative has also been sponsored by Case Technology Consulting. Help your business get value out of its data and become more efficient and streamlined. Case Technology Consulting. Check out the link in the description. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're back on top of the morning with the Urban Conservative. Abdul Ali here, rocking with you. Hopefully you are having a positive and productive morning so far. As always, jump in the comments us to cover on the Urban Conservative or here on top of the morning. Please do not hesitate to let us know. I do want to give a big shout out to RNC committee man for the great state of North Carolina, Ed Broyhill, for being a sponsor of our inauguration coverage that's going down Sunday. We'll be live from the Black Conservative Federation inaugural gala, and then we will be hosting the inauguration, broadcasting the inauguration live. And we want to thank Ed Broyhill for his support and for being a co-sponsor of that. If you want to co-sponsor our coverage of the inauguration, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know. You can send us a direct message on Facebook, Instagram, or on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, absolute what do you call that? Molly-whopping of the Democrats by Pete Hegseth yesterday. If you had an opportunity to watch any of the Hegseth nomination hearings, confirmation hearings, what you saw was somebody who was calm, somebody who was collected, somebody who didn't get frustrated by the Democrat antics, of which we are going to play some for you right here. But one of the interesting things I find is there are people in the Senate and during these Senate hearings who take this interesting moral high ground as if they have this moral high ground over any and everybody. You know, I personally think, this is just my personal opinion, I understand that things happen. Marriages break up. People have relationships. It's one of those things that just happens in life. Now, if we're not talking about somebody who's beating their wife, if we're not talking about somebody that's, physically violent, or somebody that's just being an out-and-out scumbag who happen to have some issues in their relationship, I would tend to separate that from their qualifications to run for something. And I like how that one senator put it. Name which one of y'all senators haven't come and don't know about other senators coming to work drunk to vote on a bill on an evening. So I think Hegseth did a great job, did a fantastic job in staying calm and collected and really taking the fight to the Democrats. I'm going to show y'all some of the weird highlights from this Hegseth hearing, man. Some of this was just down and out weird. Here you go.
Not believe that you are qualified to meet the overwhelming demands of this job.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength. And in pursuing these America First national security goals, will remain patriotically apolitical and stridently constitutional.
You said in your statement, you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal.
I've never despaired.
All right, for the record, I listened to the entire hearing, confirmation hearing. I don't know how anybody could take this woman seriously. Her voice, like the shrill, shrieking. The Democrats don't appear to have learned anything, is all I'm saying.
By the way, once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal.
I've never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform, past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered.
Would you use our military to...
Oh my gosh. And we're gonna, we talk about insufferable. This lady should, when you look up insufferable in the dictionary, there should be a picture of her. That is exactly what you should get when you look up insufferable in the dictionary. This woman was insufferable.
Take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I
never understood this, y'all. Why if it wasn't political theater, right? If it wasn't really about political theater, why would they continue to ask nominees questions of people to who would put their strategic responses, top secret responses out there to policy questions like that? Like, that is just not. That's how part of this is just political theater.
I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland.
Many of your work colleagues have said that you show up.
I just got to tell you before we listen to Senator Tim here, this guy came off like a weird, like sort of like sex deviant. Like, why was he so concerned about Pete Hegseth's personal sex life? Okay, why? It was just bizarre. The line of questioning from Tim Kaine, and just look at the guy.
For work under the influence of alcohol or drunk. I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense. Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality
they're not anonymous.
The letters on the record here.
They're not anonymous.
On the record,
we've seen records with names attached to them.
Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have.
I don't want a long answer. Yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my leadership
or no, did you lead an audit?
Stated,
yes or no?
Completely
what are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or
I don't like why.
Or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
yes
of these
or no?
organizations,
yes
I'm not a perfect person, but redemption is real.
Look, we could go on with this, but I will tell you the Democrats were absolutely insufferable during Pete Hegseth's comment. And if you're a Republican on this committee, you're going to have a hard time explaining to your constituency why you did not support the confirmation of Pete Hegseth to be the next Secretary of Defense. Now, one of the interesting things is they talked about how qualified, right? And some of these people who have lied about their service, some of these senators who've lied about their service in Vietnam and other things have no room really, in my opinion, to talk. But just real quick, so we have an idea, okay? Hegseth has been, let me go here, because I want to, he graduated from Princeton. He joined Bear Stearns as an equity capital markets analyst, commissioned as an infantry officer in the Minnesota National Guard. 04 and 05, his unit was Guantanamo Bay Naval Base under operational control of 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division, where he served as an infantry platoon leader and was awarded the Army Commendation Medal. In 05, Hegseth was again working as a capital markets analyst for Bear Stearns. His next deployment lasted from 05 to 06. He volunteered to serve in Baghdad and Iraq, where he served as an infantry platoon leader and later as a civil military operations officer. He was also awarded the Bronze Star and his 2nd Army Commendation Medal. So by having Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, the people in our armed services are going to have somebody who has fought in combat, who is closer to the men and women and what they've had to suffer through as a volunteer service. We have somebody who wants to get us back to war fighting capacity in this country, who wants to get back control of the military away from all the wokeism that Lloyd Austin has put in place, get back to the mission of standards, get back to the mission of ensuring that our veterans, our firefighters, our war fighters, I should say, do not go into a fair fight. We need to have the advantage. And that's what I got from Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing is that he wants to return the United States to a place of prominence. He wants to work with Donald Trump to ensure that the United States military is the best military fighting force, most lethal fighting force to deter war, and if we have to go to war, to win it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is top of the morning for this morning. One last thing, I want to make sure that we go back to this, and we'll make sure this is in the comments. If you are able to support the good sister, Krishana Polite, please, please, please look for the GoFundMe. It'll attach to our website. It'll be attached to the Frederick Douglass Foundation of North Carolina. It'll be in the description of this video. We want you to help Krishana. As you can see, on the way to helping her, we've got a goal that we want to hit. Again, Krishana Polite, former chief of staff to Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, was injured by a bullet on New Year's Day. So if you can help out Krishana, that means the world. I know she'll appreciate it. Her family will appreciate it, and so will we. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure if you enjoy this content, you give us a like, share, a follow, subscribe. Make that you are wherever you listen to podcasts. You're the Urban Conservative. If there's something you want us to cover, let us know. For my twin brother, Raheem Architect Soto, I'm Abdul Ali. This has been Top of the Morning here on the Urban Conservative. Peace and love, y'all.